Hello and welcome everyone to the Prelims PYQ discussion by New IAS. The theme of this video is British industrial policies. In the previous video, we discussed the British revenue policies, which was regarding land revenue settlements. Here it is about industries. So we should keep in mind that industries in India were limited and British never tried to promote industries in India. What they tried to do was to take the raw materials from here, take it to Britain, process it there, build industries there, give employment there, and bring back the finished product to India. So India will be a market. So supplier of raw material and market for finished good. This is the drain theory of Dadabhai Nauroji, and this is what happened during this time period. Keeping this theory in mind, let's go to the questions. The first question: which of the following statements correctly explain the impact of industrial revolution on India during the first half of 19th century? Here two things you have to keep in mind. First is impact of industrial revolution. Second, first half of 19th century. That means from 1800 to 1850. Now you see the second option. Third option, railway lines were laid in many parts of the country. Now this railway reforms comes during the time of Lord Dalhousie. That is 1856 or after 1850. So if you know this date, then this option can be eliminated. So here again you can see chronology coming into the scheme of things. So this can be eliminated because of that. Second option C, machines were introduced in the Indian textile industry in large numbers. So I've already told you in the introduction, the British never wanted to develop Indian industries. Now, even when you can say that there can be one or two machines introduced here and there, in large numbers, it didn't happen, especially in the first half of 19th century. So this can also be eliminated. So just keep in mind that they were trying to industrialize Britain at that time and not India. So this can be wrong any which way. Last option, heavy duties were imposed on the imports of British manufacturers. Now, why would they do that? The trade redemption, something like the Dastak or the Farman of Farrukhsir, Aurangzeb, the Golden Farman, everything seeked privileges, trade privileges. Now, why would British imports be taxed with heavy duties? So this is contradictory to common logic. So these three options can be eliminated accordingly. And option A is the right answer. Indian handicrafts were ruined because cheap machine made goods were coming in. So that's the answer. Option A is the right answer here. Moving to the second question. The Trade Disputes Act of 1929 provided for: first, participation of workers in the management of industries. Obviously no. This is a very liberal measure. This is part of the directive principles of state policy. Even today we cannot implement something like this. So at the British time it is never going to happen. Second, arbitrary powers to the management to quell industrial disputes. Now this is possible, but let's keep this for a halt. This is possible. Third, an intervention by the British court in the event of a trade dispute. Here the point is British court. So British Parliament was also not directly ruling India. They had a Secretary of State. So why would the British court directly intervene in trade disputes in India? These are not even administrative disputes but trade disputes. So this is very unlikely. Now last, a system of tribunals and a ban on strikes. Now these two options are very likely. Power to the management and ban on strikes. Here it becomes a very factual question. These two options. The right answer is option D. First of all, they had a system of tribunals with this act. Second, a ban on strikes was imposed. So the idea was to introduce something called the courts of inquiry within India. This is not the British court, so don't confuse it with that. Court of inquiry to quell industrial disputes and a ban on strikes. Now this act was further amended in 1932 and again in 1934. So that's the legacy of the 1929 Act, and the two basic ideas were this, option D. Moving to the last question of the discussion, we have the question on Factories Act. The Factories Act of 1881 was passed with a view to fix the wages of industrial workers and to allow the workers to form trade unions. Again, put the same logic. Why would the British allow trade unions to be formed in India? It's very unlikely, right? So the Factories Act 1881 came during the time of Lord Ripon. Ripon was a liberal lord compared to Lord Lytton who came before him. So Factories Act came because of his liberal nature, and it had some good provisions, but allowing to form trade unions is a very extreme measure considering the circumstance. The only positive measure in that was prohibition of child labor, children under the age of 7, and application to every company that uses mechanical power and has at least 100 employees. And basically, it was intended to improve the working conditions, but there is no mention of trade union formation. So this option is wrong, it can be eliminated. And here you have a very factual statement. N.M. Lokande was a pioneer in organizing the labor movement in India. This is in fact correct. But without knowing this fact, it is very difficult to approach this question. Let's be clear on that. N.M. Lokande, Narayan Meghaji Lokande, died in 1897. He was the father of trade union movement in India. So that's the answer. Third question was pretty factual, but on the whole, just keep the idea that the British never tried to promote Indian industries. Their idea was different. If you have that conceptual clarity, at least one or two options can be eliminated in these series of questions. So that's it. Thank you for listening.